Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Conscious Living Radio on 100.5 CFRO FM Co-op Radio in Vancouver. My name is Marc Caron, and today I'm here with my co-host of the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, the annual event that really introduces and brings world-class leading experts in the healing properties of psychedelics and spirit plant medicines. And today, with the conference coming up in just a few short weeks, we have the pleasure of having one of our featured speakers on our program today. And I'm going to pass over to my good friend, Stephen Gray, to introduce our guests today. And we're going to go down what some people would call the rabbit hole in terms of the healing properties of plant medicines. Stephen, welcome. Always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Marc, and nice to see you, Josh and Kelly. And as Marc said, I'm going to begin by, I'm going to begin by reading the bio that we have on the conference website. So if you want to check that out later, you can see that again and see a lovely picture of them with Josh wearing, a hat that looks like it's made out of a plant.
The mushroom hat.
Is it really? Oh, I was wondering about that because Paul Stamets has a mushroom hat as well. And I've been reading Merlin Sheldrake's book, Entangled Life. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing what fungus do. Anyway, so here's the bio. Josh Sarvis and Kelly Dunn have been cultivating pure closed loop cannabis for almost 3 decades. I'm gonna ask you what closed loop means. They are humus beings, and they like puns also, obviously, dedicated to intentionally and actively educating the cannabis industry on purity in cultivation inputs and practices. They're passionate about being a clear, conscious voice for the cannabis plant, whom has given so many healing benefits to all humanity. They created Dragonfly Earth Medicine, which is an international nutrient company and also an educational platform for conscious cannabis. The DEM, that would be for Dragonfly Earth Medicine, DEM Pure Certification has become a highly sought-after, community-driven, beyond organic certification. The DEM Pure Collective has over 300 members worldwide that are experts in all facets of cannabis. They continue to bring educators together to create international standards for regenerative cannabis practices that include sun-grown, field extraction, breeder, and Business DEM Pure certifications. Wonderful work you guys are doing. So welcome to our interview here. You can say hello.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Oh,
Thank
yes.
you so much for having us today, Stephen and Marc.
Yeah. Well, I'm delighted to have this conversation with you folks.
Frozen.
And when I say conversation, I mean mostly it's going to be you.
There we
speaking.
go.
Oh,
are you okay now?
Here we are.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened. Thank you so much for having us today, Stephen and Marc. We're really honored to be here and talk with you all about cannabis and our love for it, and being a part of the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. It's a true honor for us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, delighted to be doing this with you folks. So, yeah, you're doing some wonderful work up there in the place where we're not going to tell anybody. We had just have some basic questions about what you're doing and your philosophy and so on. So maybe I could just start with asking you to wax eloquent on why you got into this. You can take that any way you want, like what your relationship to cannabis is, how you got inspired to do this kind of work.
Yeah, well, Kelly and I have been together since the early 90s, and we met in Eugene, Oregon. And at the time of our life then, we were really interested in alternative living already. We were really into Grateful Dead and touring and herbalism. And being in Eugene was a place of mycology and midwifery and cannabis and plant medicine and fungi and all the things that were supernatural nature exploration. So it was really important to us, even before we met, to follow the path of nature and follow that natural path. And I feel like when we came together, we set this intention that we were going to live a natural life, you know, from beginning to end. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, my personal relationship with cannabis has come, you know, since I was a teenager. Upon first trying cannabis, I knew that this was a deep spiritual healer for me from the very beginning. It immediately started to heal, you know, trauma from my childhood. It helped me relate to the world on a much deeper level, on a more understanding of maybe, you know, when you're a teen, you wonder, why are you here? And what is the meaning of life? And we go through all of these deep exploration into our heart and soul, and sort of have a lot of questions. And I feel like when I found cannabis, she really helped guide me to those deeper answers that I was truly looking for. And from that time, I feel like I have been an incredible servant to her. And in her new coming out, in her time of legalization, and her time of medical cards, where more and more people can cultivate her and try her and explore with her, that for her to be able to have a rightful voice in this coming out is absolutely imperative. So that's, you know, having an incredibly deep connection with the plant and giving her a rightful voice in her coming out is incredibly important, because she's given so much to us.
And I've been blessed to be around the plant my whole entire life, all through utero. My mom smoked hash in Southern Oregon, and we were always around cannabis. So it must have been a beautiful karmic thing for me, because my whole entire life has been surrounded by the cannabis plant, and I didn't have to say smoke Mexi, you know, weed back in the day. It was always super dank, and nothing wrong with that, but it's just, that's not what I had to do. My parents always had, like, you know, there was always big colas around and stuff. So, you know, and I've just continued that journey. Cannabis is important to us.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it sounds like you came right out of the womb with an enriched endocannabinoid system.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very.
So let's get right into, you know, some of the issues about the work that you do, and I would like to start with asking you what your philosophy and approach is to growing cannabis, and perhaps, you know, any plant, I suppose, because it's part of a philosophy for you guys. And I know you also offer other kinds of herbs as well. So can you talk about your philosophy, because this will lead in perhaps later to some, you know, I'll ask you or we'll ask you about, you know, the certification program and so on.
Okay. Our philosophy is that we take it very seriously, that we feel like we're out to save the world. And we think that cannabis is one of those catalysts, both spiritually and physically, that can help us do that. So when we say growing closed loop cannabis, we're talking about growing cannabis from inputs from our own, from nature, from our land. So we're not bringing in mined products or, you know, salt products or chemicals in, because we believe this plant is a spiritual sentient being. And when it grows, it's creating its medicine. So it's really important for us since the beginning that we start the seed from a natural process under the moon cycles in living soil, and we grow this plant totally natural throughout its whole entire process until it's consumed by someone. And when someone has consumed medicine that's grown with that type of intention, it's really, really different than when cannabis is grown commercially and in more of a hydroponic and aeroponic, or more of a
indoor under lights.
Yeah, so cannabis since legalization has been very mainstreamed and almost, let's, for a lack of a better term, bastardized, maybe similar to tobacco. Tobacco is an incredible master plant that's been used by native and spiritual cultures all over. And then, you know, it gets ruined by, you know, large companies taking over. So it's really important to us that cannabis stays spiritual, it stays sacred. Keep, you know, cannabis sacred. And so would you like to add to that?
Well, I just feel like as a cultivator, we are the holders of the medicine. And it's incredibly important when you're the holders of the medicine that you know that every single flower that comes off of our farm is going to affect somebody's day, affect somebody's moment, affect somebody's possible whole entire lifetime, or their relationship with cannabis forever. So that's something that really has to be taken into account. So not only do we have an intelligent microbiome when we're allying with nature and when we're allying with beneficial microorganisms, but the plant also has a microbiome that she holds in and of herself. And when you are giving that plant an ultimate capability to have a completely healthy, intact microbiome by feeding it good nutritive soil from nature with the moon patterns and seeing the moon and the sunshine, then that plant has its ultimate potential to be able to uptake as much cannabinoids and terpene profiles. So it's super enriched with the best kind of medicine that it can offer. And we feel like that's incredibly important. So a healthy microbiome of the plant, a healthy microbiome of the person that's cultivating the plant is incredibly important to, the ultimate potential that the plant can give to the consumer.
Boy, if only everyone was growing like that with that attitude. Way to go.
Well, and I wanted to just chime in there too, because I really appreciate your approach to how you treat this plant, because I've always said it for years, the natural approach, like you were saying, artificial lights and hydroponics and all of these things that we put into this commercially or recreational grade stuff for higher volume and everything else. There is just something that is so much more natural. Like you're talking about the moon cycles, you're talking about roots actually in the earth, you're talking about real sun, real photosynthesis, and what a difference that makes. Anything grown outdoors is so much better than anything commercially produced recreationally, black market wise, back in the day. So I just really want to give you a big shout out and acknowledge the difference in the work that it takes, because you're also obviously not growing year round as well, like some of these commercial producers.
Yeah, we're annual growers growing in the inland mountains of British Columbia, and it's a unique environment here, and this environment allows cannabis, if you hold it the right way, an incredible expression. So it is magical medicine that comes out of here, and it doesn't get to be its full power unless it's, drinking the mountain spring water, and if its roots are eating betulinic acid from, birch logs that we buried in the ground, and, just so much to it. There's so much to it, and it's exciting. It's exciting, and the plants, incredible looking. Incredible.
Yes. Well, I know your medicine, and I would completely agree. So, you've said several brief comments about the spiritual aspect of this plant, and along with its more physiological, medicinal benefits. I think you guys know that that's kind of my niche as well with my book Cannabis and Spirituality, and so I'm wondering. What does the plant do that makes it spiritually powerful or beneficial for people? What actually happens if somebody smokes it, and how would they do that, and what do you think happens that qualifies it as a spiritual ally?
She gives you a different perspective. I mean, more than anything, she gives you a different perspective, and depending on, I believe, what the message of that particular medicine is also going to come through. That's why I think that it's so imperative to be of respect of the plant from seed to seed, because when you ingest it, you're going to be ingesting maybe her experiences that she's been through, or maybe, the ancient connection that humans have had with this plant from the very, very beginning. We have an endocannabinoid system that's fully a part of our chemical and biological makeup. So the spiritual path that we've had together with this plant, did she come before us? Did we come before her? I don't know if you can really separate humanity and our experiences on this planet from cannabis. So when you ingest her, you get that incredible download of that past history that we have with each other and the healing components that she's here to give us. She's really here to heal us from the inside out, not only heal our historical DNA of where we've come from, but also where it is that we're going. It's so incredibly impactful. Even down to if you've had a difficult day, just having a quick toke or having a little lozenge or something can make you see the forest from the trees in a really different way, to make you look at yourself and maybe your path forward in a way that you wouldn't normally. So I think that's very important.
And sometimes, it's hard in this for us in the present, in the be here now moment, to recognize that we are still evolving. We're still in evolution. We think about history as something that's finished and now it's like all done for this moment, but we're in the middle of evolving, and the cannabis plant is evolving with us. And it has over 100 cannabinoids in it, and not any other plant has that many cannabinoids, and those cannabinoids go into our endocannabinoid system and help regulate our body. And so spiritually, it's connecting with our biome, which is trillions of cells. Those trillions of cells are all interacting together, and it creates fiber, which we can build with, and it creates oil, which we can eat, and it creates mass, which can heal the earth. And when we grow it properly, we can restore topsoil. We know we're losing topsoil at an incredible rate right now. So using cannabis turns our mind on spiritually. It helps us make the right decision. It's hard to make the right decision when not every part of your neurological system is satisfied. When you have the law of minimums, when all the minimum things that you need to act in your full potential, once those things are all given to you, then you can become the full human. So the cannabis plant offers us almost every aspect of that. And then it helps us realize how important food is, and it helps us realize how important fungi is, and how medicine, it's interconnected in every single way. So that spiritual interconnected master plant, it's amazing when you can really use it for what it's giving us.
Well said. Excuse me, I just interviewed recently Chris Killam, another one of our speakers at this year's conference. He's known as the Medicine Hunter, and he has a new book coming out called The Lotus and the Bud. And it's a wonderful book. I've actually read the electronic version of it. So he's talking, of course, about the combination of yoga and cannabis, and the ways that cannabis can enhance yoga practice. So I'm wondering, have you guys considered, it seems like cannabis is sort of infused in an organic way, so to speak, woven into your daily life, in some ways or others. But do you also combine it with any kind of meditation practices, or what are normally called spiritual practices?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like, just like I was saying, I don't know if you can separate cannabis from its history with humanity, or vice versa. It's sort of the same with us as a family, as you can't really separate what it is that we're doing and thinking from cannabis. She is such an incredible master plant within our household, that our yoga on a daily basis, our meditation on a daily basis is absolutely done with her in mind, or maybe even her, intaking her or having a toke before we might sit down and do some meditation, before we do planning. It's so integrated on an everyday level that I feel like, it's hard to separate, even an incredible cooked meal that we've made from maybe meditation. We're doing it all with cannabis. She's a big part of our family.
I've taken, not personal, but anyway, I'm really into building and creating space. And I've taken the whole 5 acres of what we're growing on. We live on a 10-acre piece, and we have about 5 acres that we cultivate on. And I've created numerous spiritual spots all over the place, little altars, magical zones within the garden. And personally, I will every day take at least 10 to 15 minutes to just sit down in one of those spots on the land and just say nothing and just be there and watch everything happen around us, because all of our gardens are so interactive and so filled with trees and bushes and flowers and cannabis. It's amazing when you sit longer than just a couple minutes, everything comes in.
We're getting
Hello?
some breakup issues there. Yeah, you might have to repeat that.
Okay. Where was the last part?
You were talking about sitting down, and if you stay there for any length of time, things happen.
If you stay there for longer than a few minutes, then nature just comes in around you, and you can see all the bees. And it's fun just to look at our flower patch and count how many different kinds of bees. When you just walk by flowers, you might just be like, oh, there's bees there. But then you realize, wow, there's 12 different kinds of bees, just bees. Then you have, you know, the birds and stuff. So for me, the spiritual sacred union is done in the gardens, and watching nature happen around me.
One of the, if I may, Stephen,
Yeah,
one of the
course,
things
yeah.
I love too about what you're speaking of is, you know, you don't have some clear cut farmer's field where you're just growing massively, you know, for volume. And it's one thing that I learned with my friend David Wolf and some of the work that we've done and interviews we've had, where he talks about, he's got a place in Hawaii and everything is interconnected. He does the same. So he's got all the natural elements of nature. So he's not stripping the land. He's not doing those things. And what I'm hearing is you guys are doing the same thing, where you're incorporating all of the nature, the trees, the shrubs, everything in terms of that, you know, full on natural process. One of my questions is, what's the difference between what you guys do and what they call biodynamic farming?
Very similar. I mean, you know, there's, would you like to answer that?
Oh, just biodynamics is definitely part of what it is that we do. Biodynamics helps pull, you know, Steiner helps sort of coin the term biodynamics. He took a lot of what the farmers were already doing in the field and gave notation to it. He was much more apt to be able to, you know, deal with the written word and write it down. So he took a lot of the practices that the farmers were doing, which was sun and moon and earth practices, and also collecting microbiology. So a lot of the preps that are used in biodynamics are, how are we going to draw more beneficial microbiology? So in that way, we are absolutely totally in alignment with biodynamics, because we are trying to, or we are incorporating beneficial microbiology. We're creating beautiful meals for the beneficial microbiology to come by and be able to host themselves on and colonize. So it really is like a basis of it, but we're using that as well as, you know, ancient natural farming practices, as well as we've gotten a lot of information from the mid 1800s glass houses in the UK for integrated pest and fungal management, like really just looking at everything and how holistic that nature farming can be, and taking everything that we can from it in our 30 years. How is it that we can make it easier? As a joke, we always say that we're farming for being 85. So how is it that we can make our system so beautiful and so simple that when we're 85, we're still producing the same volume and the same beautiful garden?
So yes, we agree with everything biodynamic, the crystals in the ground, the planting by the moon, the harvesting by the moon, but we also want to recognize that, you know, the world has so much to offer. So natural farming, hugelkultur, you know, swales, permaculture, we're not one thing, we're everything. That's the only thing that we would add to it, is that we take a little of everything.
You sure do. Well, this would be a natural segue into the DEM Pure Certification program. However, I want to ask you another question from a personal point of view, which you might be able to have a little advice on. As you know, Canadians are now allowed to grow 4 plants of their own. But it's a bit of a, pardon my French, shit show because, for one thing, there's no, well, this is a different question in a way or a different problem, but there is no real accessible legal source for getting what you need to start that, Like you can't go down to a dispensary in Vancouver here and buy the seeds or the clones. So that's one thing. But the other thing is I, for the first time, have actually grown 1 plant this year. And I just wanted to ask you about this because the growing season is relatively short, and what I've heard from a couple of sources is that if you let your plant go naturally, as I understand it, and please correct me if I misunderstand, it doesn't start to flower until there's 12 hours of darkness, and as I understand it, that would be on September 21st or the fall equinox. That means that it may take another 6 to 8 or 9 weeks to reach the point where you want to harvest it, and that takes you into early November here. Down on the coast and up in the interior, it's even maybe worse because it's freezing. But here, it's cold and damp and dank, and there's a good chance of rot, mildew, and all those kind of things happening. So, what I've been instructed to do or guided to do is light dep or light deprivation. So, and I did that. So I started putting my plant in the dark for 12 hours and more as on August 4th, actually, and then harvested it a couple of weeks ago. And that seemed to work. But do you have any, I guess the larger question is, do you have any good guidance for us poor schmucks that are, not experts in any stretch of the imagination, but now can grow our own plants legally in Canada?
Well, one thing that I know Josh will have something to say on this too, but one thing that we've been working on for a very long time is plants that finish without a 12-12 light cycle. So that's called auto flowering. And that's something that has a ruderalis blend in the plant. So something that you want to talk about as far as the varietal of what you're getting is really important as to when it is going to finish. A lot of what is the really popular strains that people are seeing in the dispensaries or maybe what's available online are seeds that really are going to go with that 12-12. They're a California strain. They can be grown outside in California, and there's plenty of beautiful sunshine and nice dry weather all the way through for it to finish. But you're right, because we're up here in BC and a lot of Washington and even Oregon or any other northern states and the rest of Canada can't really grow those strains outside and have them finish properly. So it's really important that if you're going to do it outside under full sun without light dep, I know Josh will probably want to touch on light dep, that you're going to want to have the right varietal of strain that finishes without 12-12.
There's 2 kinds of cannabis plants, ones that trigger by photoperiod and ones that trigger by days alive. And ruderalis is a Siberian strain, and that's what the technical term is for an auto flower. So people in Canada can grow auto flowers, which can be done by the middle of August, because there's different kinds of auto flowers, ones that go 60 days, ones 70 days from starting of seed. Even if there's 24 hours of light, they still finish. So auto flowers are really, really easy for people to grow in their backyard. Like Kelly said, we've been breeding auto flowers, but also people in our collective, the Dragonfly Earth Medicine Pure Collective, grow really incredible auto flowers, and they're better than they used to be. People have grown auto flowers in British Columbia for a long time, but they were very airy buds and didn't have the same kind of flavor that you can get nowadays. So nowadays you can get very incredible flavors out of auto flowers because the breeding has been intentionally done. For light depping, what they call light depping or light deprivation, that does some of that technology came from, say, the Netherlands with their flower farms and stuff, and they triggered the flowers to sell for Easter and whatnot. But for cannabis, like you said, it's the 12-12 that makes it flower. So we start our first light depths on our land in July 1st, so that it's done before September 1st, because that July, August window, most cannabis plants take around 2 months to finish. But again, that's not our.
And with outdoor, a little bit more than 2 months, two and a half months really, before it starts to get that idea flip. It's not that hard flip like what an indoor crop would be with just turning the lights to 12-12. So it sort of takes a softer time for it to go into its flowering. And we always, really tell everybody, in a cold, damp climate, in a northern climate, you want to be done by September 1st. It's absolutely imperative that whether you're getting a varietal that finishes on September 1st or whether you're light depping to finish on September 1st, it's very important, because you just start to have that pathogen fungi pressure that comes in with the damp, fall.
So is there a difference in the quality if you let it do its whole thing naturally versus a light deprivation versus an auto flower? How does that affect quality of the medicine?
Well, strain is going to be our number one quality factor. So just getting an auto flower doesn't really tell you what the quality is. So the strain that the auto flower is made from is going to tell you how much or what flavor it has. And I think both of our opinions is green. I think light dapping is potentially the highest quality.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because it's covered, generally it's in a greenhouse, covered acid or chemical rains.
Well, and also ash and smoke
and
from this year.
I don't know if our internet went out, but yeah, maybe ash could be an issue. Definitely on the West Coast in Oregon, California, and Washington, ash is a huge issue. So greenhouses that have just a roof and they're not sealed in, they have open walls, make a really good light depping greenhouse, like a backyard, small greenhouse. The walls come up by the middle of the summer and they never go down again. They're just always airy. When you close the sides and the top, and there's lots of different ways to do that to create darkness, it's nice to have a fan on the inside that blows the air out, because what you're doing is you're creating basically a mushroom environment. That's not what you want. So you're trying to create airflow inside there. So a fan that's blowing air within the darkness is important, and a tube that sucks the air out without letting light in. You don't want to have light leaks in your light deprivation, because it can create herming or hermaphroditic things within your flowers. So keep it totally dark.
And I guess, sorry.
Go ahead, Marc.
And I guess just to answer your question really easily, Marc, is really, it depends on the strain, was what Josh said, but also where it's grown. Like California has the most amazing sun-grown. They don't need to light dep. I believe California highest quality flower is full season sun-grown. I believe up here in BC, the highest quality is light dep, greenhouse cover, is the highest quality. So it really depends on what type of weather pressures that you're having. If you're in the South, you wouldn't need to light dep. It's not important. So using the sun for the highest quality is definitely.
I'll just do really quickly though. Super hot, fully exposed sun makes the trichomes a little smaller and the buds a lot tighter. Even in like Southern Oregon and Northern California, where it's crazy hot, people will put shade cloths over their plants in the middle of the day. So up here in British Columbia, you don't really need to put shade cloth over anything. But when you put a greenhouse fabric over and it's like a polyweave or something, it diffuses the light. And then the plant gets a really soft, beautiful light, which allows the trichomes to be really big and bulbous. So up here in British Columbia with the light depth, your trichomes can be really quite a bit bigger than a fully exposed, really hot area.
Yeah, well, our backyard is full sun, and we had some pretty hot days for quite a long time in July and August this year. And I think that may have happened to my plant. So that's a good tip. And by the way, I just want to say that I looked up, little tiny, really small greenhouse, kind of personal greenhouse things on Google, and there's a lot of them for folks, So thanks for that guidance. And before we start getting close to the end of this, you really have to tell us about what's involved with the DEM Pure Certification program. Like, you've pretty much made it clear up till now the incredibly high standards you have for this plant and the respect you have for it. It's quite wonderful in my view. But maybe you could say a little bit more about what actually is required for someone who wants to, for example, become DEM Pure certified.
Yeah, so just a quick background on it is that we just believed that having the name organic no longer really served us. The USDA, the Canadian Organic Standard, the OMRI certification started to have different types of loopholes, basically, that you could really get out of and still call yourself organic. So we really felt like, unfortunately, that word and the definition of it has changed through time. And we wanted something that was more going to define who it was that, what kind of medicine that we were putting out. So we came out with the DEM Pure Certification sort of out of frustration for what people were using the term, organic. And we grasped onto the term regenerative. And we thought regenerative is much more of a term that settles with what it is that we're doing, because it's continuously regenerating life. It definitely isn't a term that we came up with. We found it in a 1940 book from Rodale, incredibly intelligent man. He came up with the term regenerative, and we we're like, yeah, that's it. That's the one that makes sense. Regenerative cannabis, that's what we're doing. So we created an entire certification, which is about land use and land stewardship. And let's stop thinking that we need to directly feed the plant. Our job as human beings is to directly feed the soil and to let Mother Nature do what she does and feed the plant. So let's talk about natural systems. So within our Pure certification, we require 6 working closed loops. It sounds like it should be pretty easy, but it's quite difficult. So if you're making your own soil off of the land, that's 1 closed loop. If you're doing all of your own nutrients, so say that you're growing herbal remedies, which is really what we didn't touch on today, which is different than what we do from Biodynamics, is that we do a lot of herbal therapies and we do herbal biomass growing for our plants. Yeah, Biodynamics does too. We've just gone further into the herbology of it and how to heal plants. So really, how is it that, the more closely, not bringing in extra amendments or nutrients, because unfortunately, we don't know where those come from. And the incredibly stringent testing that small cannabis farmers have to go through to be able to get their product out on the market is really intense. And a lot of the products that are in big ag will fail those products. So not only were we trying to be intentional with the plant itself, but how is it that we can help small farmers and that every single one of their crops is going to be successful in the market? And that's really doing away with outside inputs, so that everything that's going into your soil, everything that's going into your plants, so that that you're going to be able to pass those tests, and small farmers that are entering into the cannabis market can be successful. And it is absolutely our main mission in life. And we feel like what is going to save the planet is small intentional farmers. So their success is the reason why we created this certification. I'm sure you'd have
we created the certification when there was no certification for cannabis. It was one of the first ones. Clean Green down in California was the first one, and then we were right after. And it was at a time when there was no scrutiny to the cannabis that was going onto the shelves. And since we're from Oregon and British Columbia, and we've been traveling up and down the West Coast, we're very aware of what's happening everywhere. And we, like Kelly said, things like the Clean Green and things like organic certification, they certify products. They don't certify practices. And so we were the first one to come out and certify practices and say, actually, it's not about the products. And actually, a lot of these products don't fall in line with self-reliant farming. And self-reliant farming is what builds microbiology. Just throwing a bunch of products at your soil doesn't build anything. It just puts a bunch of stuff in your soil. Putting raw materials and closed loop practices, these are things that build life. And that's what creates living medicine. And living medicine is what brings us into the future. And that's what longevity is. So, early on, we've been connecting with farms the whole time. And what we decided is we're going to create a certification that's free. It's a free certification.
You cannot pay to play.
And it wasn't like you just have $1 million. You could come in and say, oh, I bought a farm. I have all the best strains and kaboom, I'm pure certified. That's what we want is someone that says, hey, I have a lifelong intention to make the world a better place. I'm really interested in creating cannabis from nature. How can I do it? And so that's where we come in, and we've always come in, and we've been a voice for that. So all of our farms are a voice for that. And there's also few indoor cultivators that are conscious indoor and not regenerative indoor, because we don't see indoor as regenerative, but we can see indoor as conscious. And we can see the soil as regenerative because you're regenerating soil indoors. So we've just helped with the language. We've helped people ask for medicine from farmers that they want. And we've helped guide science in a way that's benefited us through the certification.
And we also realize that farmers can't be on an island of themselves. They need the support of outside educators, of outside processors, of outside businesses that really align with that sacred sense of economy, of sacred medicine. So that it's been really important that we've also extended the certification to educator certification. So we now have a DEM Pure Educator certification. We have a DEM Pure Processor certification, a hemp and field certification, so that other people can join it that are intricately involved in the cannabis industry that may not just cultivate,
and like
but
yourself,
are part
Stephen,
of the regenerative sacred medicine path. So that when consumers or people come from the outside and they're looking for good information and they're looking for, good practical knowledge, that they can come to the DEM Pure group, and there's a huge, massive expanse of really
lawyers,
super educated people that are all on the same regenerative path.
And again, we're here to save the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
nothing less at this point. And everybody who's in line with us are all here to save the world.
Yeah, that's a great vision to have. So on the doable level, you might say, if you had the ear of people in the provincial government of British Columbia and the federal government of Canada right now, and you could tell them things like, what can you do right now? You could tell them what you think they could do right now that's doable, that's practical, that's politically acceptable. Your bar is way up here. You're the goal to shoot for, so to speak, ultimately. But in the real political world, what are there things you could say to representatives of the British Columbia government or the federal government that you could do right now that would move this forward in the right way?
Well, we are actually doing that right now, and we do have the ear of the ministry, and we are talking to a lot of BC people that are making the laws and legislation. And what we keep talking about right now is allow us to farm cannabis. We are not growers, we are farmers. We want to be able to farm cannabis outside in polyculture, amongst vegetables, amongst all of these things, to be able to, have cannabis outside of just science. Cannabis is something that's grown just like our food and things that we find in the grocery store. We should be able to grow medicine in that same way without it being, a lot of the rules and legislation that's on it really is only suited for scientific indoor cannabis.
One of the first things I would say is do away with the 10,000 microbial count law. All flowers in Canada have to be past a 10,000 microbial units test in a lab, and that's extremely difficult to do. And they don't differentiate between beneficial fungi and beneficial bacteria. They don't differentiate that from pathogenic bacteria. So our flowers could be full of lactic acid bacteria and really good positive yeasts that were, coming from our natural growing, and it could fail.
That help it ferment.
It could fail a test when it's actually what saves us as humans. Flowers that are offered on the market here in Canada are gamma radiated. Most of the flowers are irradiated. Wow. So the life is taken out of the flower. So if you look at the federal flower here in Canada, it's devoid of life. And the packaging that they've required is killing our environment. So
and not only is it killing our environment, but it's also killing us. We already have tests that if you leave some of those packages out in the sun for 1 hour and then you test the flowers that are inside of that packaging, they're highly toxic. What are we doing?
Terrible. That's
terrible. I was just gonna say it's crazy because I knew some guys who they were medical growers back in the day before it was all, and they started telling me about all of, because I was asking them, what's going to happen to you guys? What are you guys going to do? And they weren't even interested in the whole government model because exactly what you're talking about this irradiation, and they told me about all of that. And what's really funny is nobody talks about it. And you're talking about the flower being devoid of life, and in any kind of plant medicine you want everything to be intact to get all of those natural substances that work with us on a natural level. So I just want to thank you for sharing that, because people don't know. I went to a dispensary once and bought government stuff, and I the packaging, it came in, the price, the quality, it was just crazy. And then my question is now with legalization, there's a great big boom with the medical side of things here at the medical dispensaries and being able to get good medicine, to now those are technically not allowed. And we got these recreational government things serving us crap. So there's this, it doesn't make sense.
It's counterintuitive to the whole entire reason why it was legalized. It was legalized to get rid of the black market and to create access. Neither one of those things have happened.
Well, what it did was it got rid of
taken access away from
it. Got rid of one corrupt market and put it into the hands of another corrupt market. And I'm sorry to be that person to give that serious honesty, but that's where we're at. It went from maybe the biker market to now the corporate market, and really I'm sorry, but they're probably the same thing. And the traditional market and the people's market, and that's why I said the importance of farming it. We need to be able to farm it, and that means all facets of farming it. That means drop the science. Like, why do we need all this crazy science? Testing is wonderful. Let's test for human pathogens. Let's make sure that it doesn't have E. coli or salmonella or listeria. That's all really important stuff. We should be doing the same with our food, which we don't do, which here again, cannabis is leading the way for a wonderful conversation about how toxed out our food environment is as well.
Cannabis companies are passing all the rules to be able to create their flower, and then they make an edible out of it, and then they failed the test because of the food products they put in there.
Oh my God.
Cannabis is tested 1,000 times more than things that are raw that go into our body. So cannabis is an amazing opportunity to look at our world. Again, it's a point of consciousness. If we don't look at it like, oh, woe is me, the world is falling, we look at it like, wow, look at what's happening here. It becomes a point of education. So we're really close in Canada. I think we have federal legalization. There's a lot of reasons to be thankful for what we have. If we got farm gate sales, If we were allowed to not, if we were allowed to have more than 2,000 square feet for a micro cultivator, if a micro cultivator did not have to sell it to a licensed producer, you know, because that creates this weird money, takes this weird money thing and puts it in. Now you have to give all your weed to a licensed producer, and who knows what they do with it. Well, the farmer gets lost. You don't even know who farmed it anymore.
And then you take away the farmer has no brand, the farmer has no name, the farmer can't even put out a strain that they've been working on for an entire lifetime. We have strains that we've been working on for 30 years, and we could give something to an LP market. It won't say Dragonfly Earth Medicine. It won't say that it's pure certified. It won't even have the strain that maybe we attached to it from the beginning.
Get strains from people.
It doesn't have the story. So we want to say, like, it's not even a capitalistic market. Like, it doesn't allow capitalism for the farmers to be able to have a brand and be able to set themselves up for the future. And that's why I keep saying we need to be able to just farm this product,
so
be able to have all of the same legalization and capabilities in the market as regular food farmers do.
I mean, the government should be paying us to do this work. Let's be real. We're saving humanity, you know, but instead they're punishing us. They're saying, you criminal, you're lucky to be here. We're going to tax you double extra. We're going to test you double extra. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. We just want to pay taxes and be a normal business like everyone else.
And you're a more natural business too, where there's, like, to me, that's just logic and common sense, people.
That's all.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Common sense, which isn't so common anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I want to second Marc's statement a moment ago where he said thank you, because you're doing revolutionary work and it's fantastic. It's really, really important. You know, it's such a shame that it is the way it is. But as you say, a moment ago, Josh, you put a positive spin on it that, you know, we're getting there, and, you know, it's new. It's only a couple of years into legalization here, and, you know, hopefully things will get saner and saner, and let's hope so anyway. I imagine we're coming pretty close to the end of our time. You know, I want to ask a personal question, kind of a personal question here, not personal about you, but
I have a question too before that, or after that, Stephen. You go ahead.
We have time for. Can I get?
Yeah, we'll throw down a couple of more. Anyways, and what I wanted you to do, guys, is because I looked at your website. I know we've had conversations before in the past, and you've got a lot of really great products. So maybe tell people how they can find you. It's all in comments below, but, you know, your products and how you distribute what you do.
Since 2007, we've had Dragonfly Earth Medicine products, which are micronized herbs, beneficial bacteria, and fungi.
Yeah, and it's just all herbology. It's taken all of my herbal and naturopathic medicine background and made healing and growth for plants. So you can go on our website, dragonflyearthmedicine.com. We're also working with CBD, and we've been working with fungi in the integration of mycology we don't really like to separate mycology from herbs. So also you can find out more about all of the farms and all of the individuals that we're working with on DEMPureFarms.com, as well as our Instagram at Dragonfly Earth Medicine. And also, if you follow the hashtag DEM Pure, it has you will see so many farmers doing incredible work, incredible educators putting out and dropping, like, mic drop knowledge out there on the edge of what's going on with cannabis, with spirituality, the physicality of it, the lawmaking of it, products, etc.
On the dragonflyearthmedicine.com website, there's plant products and human products.
Yeah,
we have raw cacao, medicinal mushrooms.
Yeah, so that was the sort of personal question I wanted to ask you, actually. So it's a good segue. I was looking at your website and I saw this product that I thought, wow, I'd be really interested in that. And it's called Mycocana Regenerative Hemp CBD oil. Can you say just a very little bit? I'm sure we're running close to the timeline for the radio show here, but just very quickly, just what that is and, you know, what it can be used for.
Yeah. So really quickly, we take regenerative hemp, which is high CBD, up in the 20% CBD and below 0.3% THC. And we slowly infuse that in olive oil and coconut oil with medicinal mushrooms and polypores that we get out of our forest here. We go on really amazing hikes in incredible lands, and we collect all the most powerful medicinal mushrooms from our forest. And we also add lion's manes and chagas and turkey tail and cordyceps and things into it, and Chinese herbs. And we create what we think is the most adaptogenic, nootropic, powerful medicine on the market because of its combination of medicinal mushrooms and cannabis. And that's what myco-cannacaps are. And you can learn more about that on dragonflyearthmedicine.com website.
Okay, I want
Awesome.
some.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, Marc.
Done.
Great. Well, guys, there's so much we could talk about. An hour is simply not enough in terms of the amazing work that you guys are doing. And I'm really looking forward to your talk and your presentation at the upcoming Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, which is now going to be virtual. So for anybody interested, you can check that out at www.spiritplantmedicine.com. And I believe you have a discount code you want to share with our audience, guys?
We don't right now, but you can hit us up. We didn't get that together.
I think it's Josh Kelly 2020. There's a discount
Put
though.
a note on there, JK, what's up?
Yeah.
We will definitely be able to get a discount code. We'll just hit us up, mention Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, and we'll give you a discount. We just appreciate what you guys are doing. The amount of awareness, Stephen and Marc, that you all are doing is, I really don't have words for it. The educators that you guys have had out there, you're really blowing open the future to allow more knowledge for plants and human existence. And just so much gratitude to you for this work.
Stephen, thank you for keeping plant medicine in our consciousness, and we appreciate the space that you hold in your cannabis ceremonies and beyond. Thank you so much for creating this space for us and for all of humanity. Marc, you're fun. I love you so much. We got the best times together. I appreciate your spirit. Both of you are welcome here anytime. Stephen, we've missed out a couple times, but we'll make it happen one time. And we just really love and appreciate you two and everyone out there.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you for being part of our program. Stephen, thanks again for co-hosting with me today. It's always a pleasure. And I look forward to learning more from you both, Josh and Kelly. So again, you've been listening to Conscious Living Radio, airing here on 100.5 FM every Wednesday at 6 p.m. in Vancouver. It's been Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine talking about the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference and all the healing properties of great quality, naturally grown cannabis. Until next time, have a great time, everyone. And thanks again for listening.